This is going to be the Manifold Founders panel. So just going to ask some questions about Manifold. If you don't know who Manifold is, we're sort of some of the organizers of this conference, and it's a site where you can kind of like bet about anything, I guess, to keep it short. But it's much more than that, and I'm sure the founders will do a much better job than I. Okay, cool. So let's just get started. So I'll be emceeing. I'm David. I'm one of the employees of Manifold. I do a bunch of different stuff. We have Austin, James, and Steven. So if you start with Austin, could you just like give 1 minute to introduce yourself and who you are?
Hello, I'm Austin, one of the co-founders. I like write a lot of code. These days I do a lot of like organizing. I'm also one of the lead organizers of Manifest and work on Manifund, the like nonprofit side of Manifold as well.
Hello, I'm James, another co-founder. Let's see, I like designing board games. When I was in high school, I was doing Flash games and computer science. I think we all studied computer science. After, like, I totally believe in doing startups. You should go do startups. Save up, like the career trajectory for both, or like most of us here, is to like start at work, save up some money, then go into startups. Okay, so I'm James.
Hello, I'm Steven. I'm James's brother and one of the other co-founders of Manifold. I have more of a financy background. Right now I'm thinking mostly about marketing and growth these days. Let's see, I've been to Turkmenistan and Komodo Island, and I'm a conlanger. You can ask me about my conlang sometime.
All right, thank you for that intros. All right, so to start off with this, and you guys can keep this short since I think most people know it's mostly for the people on the stream as well, but just like 1 to 2 minutes of like what Manifold is, how it started, why you're excited about prediction markets and Manifold. Who wants to answer that? Do you want to know, Steven?
Sure. We started Manifold because we thought we could bring prediction markets to the world. You know, we had been reading about prediction markets on Scott's blog, Astrocodex 10, which you should all subscribe to right now. For years, we'd been thinking about this for a while, but it was only when we tried to think about prediction markets from the perspective of like user ownership and user creation that we stumbled upon to our current formula, which we hope will get us to mass adoption eventually.
You should go watch my talk. It'll be on YouTube later. It has the full founding story, if you didn't see it already.
Awesome, thank you. All right, so I guess the next thing I want to touch on is Manifold's startup philosophy a little bit. I think a lot of people look at Manifold and they're like, wow, there's so many like new developments that happened since the last time I checked. Very rapid development. Some people even complain too rapid development, and they lose some familiarity between checking. So I guess, yeah, I'll maybe start with Austin. What's sort of your approach when thinking about designing products?
So we're like pretty libertarian, and that doesn't mean like we think libertarianism is cool, but we try to like live that philosophy like in a general sense. And that means that like on Manifold, for example, like all of the team members are empowered to just push code directly to production, and like they can like launch a change and it will go live like in a couple of minutes. We want to make it really easy for people to like who have an idea to like implement that idea. So that's a thing that happens not only on Manifold the site. Anyone who has an idea for a market can create a market, but also just on our team. Anyone has an idea for a cool feature can just push that out and try it out.
Fun thing is we had a question of like how can we improve Manifold, and someone just had some a complaint to air, and they posted this long comment and they complained how we're just like crazy scientist barons that are just making all kinds of changes very fast. Some of them are really bad, and like we have no like coherent vision, but we're constantly changing stuff. And so we actually made a poster. Austin created this poster that says crazy scientist barons and like what was it, in a fiefdom or something? A fiefdom of crazy scientist barons. So yeah, we like that.
Yeah, it is pretty crazy working at Manifold sometimes, I must say. I'll like find out like way after users, I'll log on and be like, oh, well, this has changed since we like last talked about it in stand-up yesterday. And that's like the norm. Yeah, I just find out by going on the site and suddenly there's like 15 different things, even as an employee. Yep. Okay, I guess the next question I have is regarding Manifund and Manifest. Obviously, this conference is Manifest. The website is Manifold, and then we also have Manifund, which is our non-profit spin-off that's doing sort of like different experimenting with regrants and other things. I guess first, Austin, you can briefly like describe Manifund, and then also just I want to know what really is the difference between them, and why three of them? Why not just focus on one thing?
The kind of true answer is like it's hard to make myself focus on like a single thing when there are like so many cool things that you could possibly build. Let's see. Manafund started as like we were thinking about mana, the currency on Manifold, is not that useful if it's just a thing that you can buy but you can't do anything else with. And we don't let people turn it back into dollars for regulatory reasons, more or less. But one of our users had the idea like, oh, you could instead let people donate to charity on your behalf. They'd write in a post about quote unquote charity prediction markets. And as far as we had seen, nobody had actually implemented this before. So we thought, okay, let's just give this a try. We spun up our own 501c3 org that is now Manafund to let people take their mana that they've earned from betting on Manifold and cash it out. So that's how Manafund got started. Then I think earlier this year, Scott Alexander had the idea that, oh, it'd be really cool to try out this concept called impact certificates. Briefly, they're like stocks for charity, where you can kind of invest in, oh, this charity is working on something cool. Maybe they will like save a lot of lives in the future, and people in the future will be willing to like pay a big price for that. Right now, I'm going to help this charity get off the ground by putting in a little bit of money, kind of like an angel investment. And then if this charity like wins a prize down the line, then I'll get paid for that. So Manafund was experimenting with this. We've moved on to some other programs as well. We're about to do like a retrospective analysis on how well the Impact Cert project went. So look forward to that as well. But yeah, that's some of the things that we've been doing at Manafund. What else?
Okay, I want to hear from like James now. What is your thoughts on if an investor who had invested in Manifold as a tech product, like as the website, came up to you and they're like, you guys seem way too distracted with all these other things. I need like explaining, convincing why these are good for Manifold and my shares in the Manifold as a company.
Yeah, I mean, I think the way you build anything successful is you're very agentic and you just go and try stuff. And so if you I feel like if it didn't look like we were trying a bunch of random things and it didn't seem like we were pushing too early, that we were just like pushing stuff to production too early, like then that would actually be a bad thing because we would be sort of like a little bit slower than we could be. And I think that successful teams are often like of that kind, where they're just not afraid to try stuff out. And I think it's sort of like better in the long run, even though we're like abusing the users a little bit by like throwing them off by changing things so quickly, because we basically learn more quickly. And so I think the best criticism from of this line of attack would be, why don't you focus on like one specific area? And I feel like we kind of, but mostly we're sticking with play money. It would have been very easy to get distracted by trying to like lobby for or like go for real money as well. We've gotten that advice like a million times, and I'm like, no, we have to like pick one thing. So I think we are still actually focused, but we're also trying a lot within that area.
Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you. And then last question before I open it up to the floor. Stephen, and the others can answer as well, but I was wondering what's sort of the biggest, this is your first time like sort of being a founder of a company with like multiple employees. I was wondering like what are some like unexpected challenges or like hardest challenges you've experienced as a tech founder?
I think the biggest one for early stage companies and really for any stage companies, just making sure that people are focused on one thing. Or one of the great things about all of you and everyone at Manifold is that people have so many ideas and want to go off in so many directions. And a lot of those are legitimately great things that I like try to encourage, but some of them are not. So a lot of the management challenge is trying to push people to be the best that they can be and focus on their most impactful projects.
What was that analogy that you had? Like you were Shiva the Destroyer?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
So in the Hindu triad, I am Shiva the Destroyer. I tear down the bad ideas so we can focus on the good. Austin is Brahma, the creator, who comes up with many new ideas. James is Vishnu, the preserver, who preserves and refines the best of our product. So there you go. Those are our founder personalities.
Okay, great. Yeah, that's it. So, and from there now we'll open it up to the floor. So I'm on the market right now that's been posted in the manifest announcements. channel. So let me have a look through and see.
And remember, the spicy polling was the last session, so.
And yeah, and like about 25 minutes we'll have Robin Hansen after this giving his talk. Okay, I guess, is Manifest 2024 likely? And if so, what would you vision it looking like? What would the difference be from now?
One big goal I would have is just like roughly double the number of people there. Because I'm just like looking around the conference venue, like for Lightcone, and of course we don't have to run it at Lightcone, Lighthaven again next year. But sorry, this is kind of scattered. It's just like, yeah, I think Manifest 2023 has been amazing so far. It's on track to be like one of my favorite events. Maybe not my favorite event of all time. There was another event where I met my wife called the Future Forum, and it's going to be hard to top that one. I don't think I can meet another wife. But yeah, Manifest 2023 is great. Manifest 2024, larger would be the big thing.
Cool. Next question is, if Manifold ever reaches mainstream status, what would the ideal way that would happen? So would you want it to be like a hit piece by like the New York Times, or would there be like a more ideal way? Maybe like lots of streamers start using it to like gamble on each other's streams, or maybe it's just like academics like start using it more and it gains traction that way. Do you have an ideal case?
I would say the best way is for people to find out about it when they're forecasting events on true global importance. So the LK99 superconductors market has been our largest growth event to date, and I think that's wonderful. This is exactly the use case that prediction markets are designed for. In reality, though, I suspect that people come to find Manifold through all the like entertainment channels that they're used to. Manifold will meet them where they are, in what interested in whatever aspect, speculating on whatever aspects are of interest to them, and that's kind of inherently hard to predict. But one of the things that we value is having the content that people in general want for themselves, even if like we personally don't care. We want to be this big, open, neutral platform that houses all of this content, and we hope that there's a market out there for everyone that everyone can be interested in.
So more Dan stock is what
That's
you're
right,
saying.
Buy up Dan stock right now.
I think that's pretty likely. People use self-serve prediction markets to solve their needs, which won't be high class. But I also think another route is possible. What we're doing with like Manifest is sort of raising the prestige of prediction markets, and I feel like there's another route where journalists start including them in news articles because it's actually relevant and it's like helpful. And so there is also a kind of top-down way where smart people decide that it's actually useful and they start using them, and then that's how they get popular. Like the New York Times starts including them, and then that's how people discover it in the first place. So it's possible.
All right. A question from Pat Scott is, are there any long-standing Manifold policies that you regret? And I'll expand on that a little bit and also just open it to more generally anything you particularly regret since starting Manifold.
I think I regret introducing too many different market types too early on. I think it would have been better in retrospect to have just focused on the binary mechanism and making that really good before adding the other things. But I'm kind of happy where we are now.
We probably could have done more marketing earlier. We kind of just disregarded it for a really long time, which is we were only able to do that because Scott Alexander got us the initial audience. But I think the end result is fine because we've just focused on product, which is good. But
this one's a lot more controversial. I don't know if it rises to the level of a regret, but I'm still like very unsure about our policy of like moving in person to San Francisco. We started remotely during the pandemic, toward the tail end of the pandemic, and I was in San Francisco. James and Steven were in Austin, Texas. We flew to meet each other pretty often, but we would just mostly have a norm of doing video calls, writing notes on Notion, that kind of thing. Now we're in person. It's a lot more fun and enjoyable. I'm not sure if it's the best fit for what is basically an online platform. And my reasoning here is that I as close to the user as possible. And that works better when we are like remote, because our users mostly don't show up in conferences and like talk to each other. They mostly like interact through Manifold, interact with Discord. And when we are testing that ourselves, we just build like much more empathy for them. So I'm still not sure about the trade-off of like being here in person in San Francisco versus just like being a fully remote team where we have to do what our users do.
Yeah, that makes sense. All right. Let's see. Joshua wants to know your take on if we'll outperform the polls in the 2024 election.
Do we have a market on this? I
I'm
believe
sure we
whatever that
do.
market says.
The answer is to believe what the markets say. All right, great.
Yeah, I don't think this is like a great kind of thing. So in 2022, right, like we somewhat outperformed like other prediction markets and underperformed attack lists based on us like being more pro, I think, a Democrat, because like the Democrats did better. But it's like a single kind of event. It doesn't like give you a lot of data points to like draw a good conclusion from. So yeah, I don't really like this kind of like, oh, is Manifold better or the polls better for like a single event?
Such political answers from all of you.
Manifold will be better.
All right, let's see. Is anyone in the audience that has like a question they want to ask right now that they haven't written in the market? Could you, okay, shout out and I can repeat it.
Yeah. So on the spectrum of like super serious, respected in journalism to like very fun, gambling, meme, where do stab opinions kind of lie? How is the ethos different on that?
Okay, so the question was, on one side of the spectrum, we have prestigious, like well-regarded in journals, and then on the other side, we have sort of everyone thinks we're just a fun, memey, gamey site, and we embrace that. Within that spectrum, what do we think like we want Manifold to be? What's the staff ethos about that?
I think kind of exactly in the middle. You want to be fun and entertaining while still providing like good, accurate forecasts on as many subjects as we can.
I think that we want both, but to do that, we have to be very like open to everything. So it actually is being completely memey, and so like people will be able to like attack us for having too many. Like Metaculus will have like the official like good predictions, but we'll always have the meme ones as well. So, but I think that our strategy of including everything will ultimately make us better at the serious questions, because we will just have a larger audience, which is super important for prediction markets. So I think our strategy is to like go for the maximum freedom, like maximum like every kind of question. And I think that will win. Yeah.
Yeah. With the so Scott.
Related questions. What are the most exciting things we might see in the next couple years? And do you anticipate a move away from buying mana as the main revenue source?
Okay, so the question is, what's exciting that we can expect in the next 2 years, and would we expect to move away from buying mana as the main revenue source? So just for a bit of context, right now, we don't really have a sustainable revenue model. People can buy our play money, but they can donate to charity at 1-to-1, but a lot of people just don't donate to charity at 1-to-1. But we also just like print a lot of money as like quest rewards and things, kind of like how games do. No.
I think Stephen would probably dispute that this is not sustainable in that, and I would dispute that it's not sustainable too. Right now, we don't take like a fee on people who buy mana and send it out to charity, but that's probably something we'll do once we've run out of like our first charitable grant. So I guess that's kind of answering your second question about like mana as like, or ways to monetize Manifold. Another way maybe James can talk about a bit more, he was thinking about we could do like selling kind of like the people on Manifold in the way that like we have some of the smartest people in the world like on our platform, like betting on these markets. And some people are really interested in like finding really smart people for various reasons. One obvious reason is hiring. I think one of our sponsors, Sovereign, is actually here with the intent to try to find like really smart like quantitative traders. There, Sovereign. Go talk to him if you're interested in
Top
learning
tier
more about
technical
that.
talent. Go see that man.
Just another note, like obviously advertising is always like the like elephant in the room for consumer apps. My hope is that we can do internal like within our platform advertising. So what I mean by that is we have this like closed economy with Mana, and that people would buy Mana with real dollars, and then they would use the Mana to promote their questions to get them answered. They would use Mana for bounties, so that we want to come up with a lot of use cases internally and have our own Mana economy. And I feel like that is like the most like Manifold flavor way to monetize.
Okay, and was there anything fun, exciting that we expect to see?
I don't really like this kind of question actually, because 2 years ago I would have no idea that Manifold would be like where it is today. So kind of ironically for a forecasting platform, we're not very good at forecasting where we're going to be 2 years from now. I'd say our ethos again is mostly one of like experimentation, try out things. Don't like think about what's going to happen in 2 years. Think about what's going to happen in the next like 2 weeks. Try to build that. Try to like make that really good. See if people like it. If not, try something else.
And I think the most exciting thing will be growth, having Manifold adopted by more and more communities that have more disparate interests from the people gathered at this conference.
Okay, yeah, question from the hat in the back.
Do you, when you're envisaging about experimenting, do you think about sort of white label versions of Manifold, where like other people get to use these tools on their own, or do you want to keep everything under the Manifold hat?
Yeah, so the question was, would we want to keep everything within Manifold, or are we okay with more like white labeling Manifold and allowing like people to use Manifold that like?
So rather than bringing, say, Destiny's community into Manifold, you would have something that was just running on somebody else's.
Yeah, okay, so like a privately hosted instance using some of Manifold's like mechanisms and ideas perhaps, but not actually contained on Manifold, but that we can sort of provide back-end value to other communities to like leverage what we've built. And what's like our plans on that, or what are our thoughts on that is the question.
So we've actually done this. We've run a few, set up a few private instances for startups and other organizations that use their own play money currency separate from Mana. The results were pretty mixed. A lot of times what you see is that there's one big prediction market proponent within a firm, and they're super enthusiastic and want to create prediction markets about every single question and bet on all of them. But everyone else on the team like has no interest in that. That's one issue. There are other problems with trying to adopt prediction markets in a corporate setting. One class of problems is that a lot of information that internal corporate prediction markets create can be bad for management. If you know that your chance of completing this project on time is like 30%, the fact that your employees know that may make the true probability 20%. Knowledge isn't always better in all instances, or some instances where things can, the markets can the market information can step on people's toes.
This is a common debate between me and Steven, though. I think this part is way overplayed, and the reason that like prediction markets aren't used in like internal corporations is that they're like not framed in a valuable enough manner. I mostly like challenge people actually when they're like, oh, it would be really cool for us to have an internal prediction market. Like, what are the specific questions you would ask, and what would you actually gain by knowing that like this thing is going to land on like December 31st, 70% chance. What does that buy you? What does that like, and what is that worth to you? Are you all going to invest in like making these predictions really good? Asking the right questions is really hard, and figuring out how to get value from those questions is really hard most of the time for like a corporate context. And I think that's why like these internal instances haven't worked so well. What I am very excited about in terms of kind of like getting more like, Destiny's community onto Manifold is something similar to like a subreddit or like a Discord server, where like different Discord servers feel very, very different based on which like moderation rules and people are in charge. And I would like something like that on Manifold too. Right now, there's kind of like a single Manifold community, and it would probably be good for us to like sub-fragment, like split up into like tiny little cities, something like that.
And to follow up on that briefly, someone also wants to know, do we think there right now are any organizations that are making serious use of prediction markets internally, sort of in secret?
Possibly. Sovereign just gave a talk yesterday about potentially incorporating prediction markets to generate trading signals for use internally. What are some other? I think there are some other like effective altruist orgs who have used prediction markets to forecast.
I've heard
like,
rumors that
grant
like
results.
OpenAI is like considering this, but rumors.
Yeah. Okay.
Question.
Yeah. Robin Hanson. Yeah.
So you guys know for like 30 years there have been many companies that have offered play money prediction markets. What do you think they did wrong?
So the question is, for many years, like 30 years or so now, there's been many companies that have offered play money prediction markets, and what do we think they did wrong?
I don't know. Maybe we were just better at building. Like, I don't know. Like, I've looked at some of those. They don't like look like really good software the same way like Facebook and like Twitter seem like really good software, like very polished, easy to use. We cared a lot about the user experience. We still care a lot about the user experience. Like, yeah, go users. But yeah, like just making prediction markets easy to use was like forefront in our consideration when we started Manifold. Like we thought about doing crypto. We were like, crypto is too hard to use. We're not gonna like make people sign up for a wallet in order to like start playing on Manifold. So we're just gonna use play money instead. Yeah, I haven't had that much experience. Maybe Steven.
Oh, I think the other aspect is like the timing and tapping into this like pre-existing like Bay Area rationality community. I think that the fact that we were able to get our start through Scott Alexander and the grant competition that he hosted, being able to launch our platform like fully seeded with by members of a community who understand the appeal of prediction markets is very big. It'd be much harder to start a platform like ours without that.
Yeah, in part what Steven's saying is that if we have network effects and everyone's already trading on it personally, then having it for your company might not be such a big thing, because I feel like people would drop off usage immediately without the other context. And I would say like we actually haven't succeeded within companies yet, so that doesn't, it's not required for Manifold to succeed. I think the markets work best in public settings with as many people as possible on topics where there's more knowledge generally, and in companies it can be very specific. Only a few people have the context, so it works less well certainly in those cases. But I'm optimistic for the future. We'll try some stuff.
I'm going to hop in as well and add an answer that I think should have been said. But I think the biggest differentiator is actually it's all user-generated content on our site.
Yeah, I was going to say that.
And taking advantage of like algorithms. Algorithms aren't the best still. We have a small team, so we can't like match TikTok style level of algorithms. But we just like outsource so much of the design. Like we have by far the most like questions and markets like of any other prediction market site, just because we have users just creating tens and hundreds each. And I think that just helps us experiment quickly, iterate more, like know what works, what doesn't with regards to the questions themselves. And then it's just much more long-term, more sustainable, I think. Yeah.
Great answer.
Thank you. All right. Any more questions? We have like 5 more minutes for questions, so any more burning questions? Doesn't seem like it. Do you guys have any questions for each other?
What will Manifold look like in 5 years, Austin?
Ask this question?
Yeah, we already had this question.
Okay, well, like I keep saying that like the goal of Manifold is kind of like to take over Twitter. That's like kind of ambitious, kind of a moonshot, but like maybe we could like actually do it. Well, Elon Musk actually kind of has like a similar vision for Twitter in that like, oh, payments are really important. I think payments are really important. For a long time, I've actually kind of said like maybe Manifold isn't valuable because it's prediction markets, but because like it has like social network plus like mana like built in. And this is like highly controversial, but we are experimenting with like lots of ways to use like mana tied to like a social network, like the ads thing that James was talking about, like bounties, like polls. So lots of different ways that we can experiment with like, oh, combining payments and just people hanging out online. I think we're going to hit something at some point and maybe take over Twitter.
Okay, I'm just going to wait for the noisy sirens to pass. And why I do that, if anyone has a question they have thought of. If not, we can just end a couple minutes early and get ready for Robin Hanson's talk, which will be up next. I guess someone wants to know, are there any like communities you're actively targeting that you hope would get use out of Manifold?
One interesting one is there's no markets on private companies, right? But we could create Manifold markets. And an interesting idea I was prototyping is like creating like markets for each company in the latest Y Combinator batch. There's about 250, and predicting the eventual exit valuation. And I was hoping that it would be a kind of like fun viral thing where people could bet on each other's startups. That's one example. There's many others that we're thinking about, like fintech Twitter has been proposed, like Wall Street bets people, like
Yeah, Manifold is sometimes kind of a hard sell. Like you can't just take random people off the street and like show them Manifold and be like, oh, like go use it. People tend to have to like be like pretty like numerate, like mathematical. People have to be like a little bit like open to like betting. A lot of people just like look at like betting, gambling, and like are instantly turned off. There's like really negative associations with this. People have to be like pretty online to kind of get into it. So there's a whole host of reasons why like the target like possible demographic for what Manifold looks like now is like not super big. But there's still like some communities that we're like pretty excited about, like fintech Twitter, like the startup scene, like what else do we have? Like people who are extremely online, like college students, we think might be a good demographic.
All right, yeah, I'm awesome to wrap it up there. Thank you guys for answering questions. If you have any more questions for them you think of later, I mean, we'll be around the event. You can just come ask us. I'm giving a talk later that's specifically going to be on like community moderation stuff, what it looks like to moderate like the first sort of user-generated like prediction markets gambling site and like how we create rules for that. But yeah, we'll be around the event. So yeah, thank you, Manifold founders.
Thank you.
Thanks.